Prime Minister Modi announced at an election rally in Chhattisgarh that Indians would be given free food rations for the next 5 years.
देश के 80 करोड़ गरीबों को मुफ्त राशन देने वाली योजना को भाजपा सरकार अब अगले 5 साल के लिए और बढ़ाएगी.
So what is this free food scheme? And more importantly, how big a deal is this? The Bond economist explains. See, India already has a National Food Safety Act that allows for some 813 million citizens to purchase 5 kg of food grains per person per month, and also 35 kg per household if you're among the poorest of the poor. Now, this 5 kg of food grains was sold at highly subsidized prices. So 3 rupees per kg for rice, 2 rupees per kg for wheat, 1 rupee per kg for coarse grains. Now, during the pandemic, the government said, you know what, we are going to give you an additional 5 kg of food grains, and this 5 kg will be free of cost. The scheme was called Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana, PMGKAY. And this kept getting extended and extended. So until December of last year, the average beneficiary had actually access to 10 kgs of food grains per month, 5 kg free and the other 5 kg ultra subsidized. Now, while the concept of free food is nice, there were two major problems the government was facing because of this. First, it was very expensive. After all, the government had to buy all these grains from farmers. India typically spent around 0.5 to 0.7% of GDP on food subsidy before the pandemic. That shot up to 2.7% of GDP in FY21, 1.2% of GDP in FY22. To give a sense of how big this is, India's central government spends around 15% of GDP every year. So spending 1% of GDP just on food is no small matter, let alone spending 2.7% of GDP. So things were getting quite expensive for the government. The second problem was logistical. Instead of 5 kg of food grains, the government had to procure 10 kg of food grains for over 800 million Indians every month. Now that put a huge pressure on our system, especially at a time when last year wheat production came under pressure and the Russia-Ukraine war meant that there was a global surge in demand for wheat. Cereal prices shot up while stocks of wheat fell dangerously low to the minimum buffer norms that the government had. The government banned wheat exports, it banned or restricted various forms of rice exports, all of this to ensure that there was enough domestic supply to control inflation. In fact, cereal inflation even now as we speak is pretty elevated. So the government figured out that look, it's too expensive to give free food grains on top of the ultra subsidized food grains, and it is not feasible for us to literally double this kind of grain procurement every year. So in December 2022, the government did a really clever thing. See, the reason why they couldn't withdraw the scheme despite all these problems was that, like all populist measures, it's easy to introduce, but voters tend to get very irritated when they get withdrawn. So in December last year, the government said, look, in 2023, we won't give you 10 kg of food grains every month. We'll go back to the practice of giving you 5 kgs. But here's the deal, we'll give it for free. So it was branded as a free food scheme. And the reason why it's so brilliant is that politically it has been marketed as a new kind of free food program. It made it easier to sell to the public. On the other hand, the fiscal cost and the pressure of procuring 5 kg of food grains per month per person was much lesser than doing it for 10 kgs. The only thing the government was losing is the amount of money that they would have collected from selling wheat at 2 rupees per kilo or rice at 3 rupees per kilo. But that comes to around 0.05% of GDP, which is actually peanuts compared to the savings the government was making in halving the size of food rations. So this scheme was scheduled to end in December 2023. All what the government seems to have done is to extend this for another 5 years, thereby cementing it into policy. So, markets who are constantly worried about whether the government is overspending or whether it's going to be inflationary, it's not that bad at all. Of course, if you were relying on government rations and were expecting it to go back to 10 kg of cheap food grains, well, then you are likely to be disappointed. But politically, free food does sound great. So let's get a bit into this politics aspect of it. Look, the election calendar has heated up. Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Telangana, Mizoram are all having elections now. And general elections are there in 2024. So this is a crunch time for political parties. And there's a lot of populism going around. Congress, after all, had promised a spate of populism in its path to power in Karnataka, including free power, free bus travel for women, cash transfers to women, unemployment benefits, free food grains. It's another thing that the Karnataka government is now writing to the centre saying that it needs financial assistance. Recently, Rahul Gandhi announced while campaigning in Telangana that the Congress will introduce a monthly package of 4,000 rupees per month for women. Voters in Madhya Pradesh have also been promised similar cash transfer schemes for women, subsidized cooking gas cylinders, lower electricity tariffs. In fact, Prime Minister Modi had actually recently spoken out against such populism, saying that this reverie culture is not good for the country.
आजकल हमारे देश में मुफ्त की रेवड़ी बांटकर वोट बटोरने का कल्चर लाने की भरसक कोशिश हो रही है। ये रेवड़ी कल्चर देश के विकास के लिए बहुत घातक है।
But then you also need to get elected back. And so the worry is that as we approach general elections, parties will continue to announce this tit-for-tat populism, which will be easy to introduce, difficult to sustain, and near impossible to roll back. For more such insights, like, share, and subscribe to The Bond Economist.